Hey everybody, it's PJ. This is our Anchored Youth lesson for the week of November the 18th. And with me, we're going to start off with a game. Just like to do that. I think we all need a little bit more fun and laughter in our days. But this is Family Feud. Wanted to give you some questions for you to try to score some points. I tell you what, most of these have 5 or 6 answers. So what you can do is I'll give you the question, the category, and of course you're going to try to get the highest score possible by writing down your top 5. Okay, so you're going to write. You'll have the category, and then you'll write down 5, and then you'll get the points for those, if any, that these go along with. So let's start off with this one. Name something specific that you turn over. Name something specific that you turn over. Okay? I'll give you a second to write that down. All right, have you wrote down your top 5? Okay, here it goes. I tell you what, let's start at the bottom. There's only 5. Let's start at the bottom. So how about turning over money? Money has 3 points. An egg gives you 8 points. A piece of paper or a page in a book gives you 9 points. A mattress gives you 22 points. And what do you think the number one answer is? It's a pancake, and that is 45 points. So you won't be able to get 100 points on these. That would be what? 67 plus 20, so 87 points are possible on there. So how many did you get? All right, we're going to do a few more. We'll do them a little bit faster this time. So write down 5, even if it's just initials. Here we go. Name a famous person, real or fictional, that children learn about. Okay, I'll give you a few seconds. All right, hopefully you've got your 5 written down. On this, there's actually 6, but you'll see why 5 is okay. So down at the bottom of the list is God, and he's got 4 points, right along with Dr. Seuss at 4 points. Now, Jesus Christ has 6 points, so hopefully you've got some of those. But then Martin Luther King Jr., 9 points. Santa Claus, 21 points. And then number 1, maybe you got it, George Washington with 26 points. All right, let's try another one. I actually think this is a very funny category. So name a book that could knock you out if someone hit you over the head with it. And sometimes you've had a book and I know you've asked yourself that question. I wonder if I can knock somebody out with this. But anyway, all right, so there's 5 answers. Go ahead and write yours down. All right, I don't know if I've given you enough time or not. You'll have to play the best way you can. So let's start at the bottom. One of the largest books, and I don't think I'll ever read this one, War and Peace. That would be 6 points. The next book probably you don't even have in your house anymore. Some of you might, is a phone book. And the phone books around here aren't very thick, but the ones in town, boy, they can get pretty large. Have you ever seen those wrestlers rip them apart? Anyway, that's 14 points for the phone book. Of course, you wrote down the Bible, and that's another 14 points. An encyclopedia is 25 points. And number 1 answer, dictionary with 39 points. Wonder how good you did on that one. All right, I've got 2 more out. Let's pick one of these. I like this one better. All right, so last chance to get some points. This time, there are 6 answers. If you want to write down 6, that's fine. If you want to just stick with 5, here we go. Tell me something that has water in it. Something that has water in it. All right, go. All right, I'm going to cut you off there. Here we go. We're going to start at the bottom once again. Now, again, I said there were 6 answers. The number 6 answer was, of course, a toilet with 3 points. Number 5 answer, the ocean, or just an ocean, is 4 points. Now, these went out of style back in the late 80s, early 90s, and that is a waterbed for 4 points. All right, so not many points on those. We're going to get a little bit more. The human body, made up of what? 70% water? That's 10 points there. Aquarium gives you 30 points. And a swimming pool gets you 35 points. Now, if you want to text me your answers, that would be awesome. Or show me a picture of you taking score, or just send me a score. I think that'd be kind of neat. I want to see how good you are at Family Feud, knowing some answers to the questions that probably, it doesn't really matter. But it kind of sets us up for our lesson tonight. Because, to get these answers, what do? They poll the audience, or they, sometimes I've heard they went to a mall and they had a questionnaire and they'd hand it to 100 people and they'd get those answers and compile them. And that's why, you'll never see the answers total up more than 100. So it's just supposed to be a random 100 people that they're gathering, and they're getting a percentage from those answers. And I wanted to, dare I do it, talk about the election. And the reason why is because we started a few weeks ago, almost 2 months ago now, talking about a series that Andy Stanley had put together, a 3-part series, but we're trying to take it slow and make sure we get through it all. And it's called The Perfect Blend of Politics and Religion. And of course, that's supposed to make you laugh, because really, is there a perfect blend between politics and religion? And Andy, of course, knows that too. But we've learned in something about it. I tell you what, let's hold off right there. Let's just talk about my feelings in the election. I hope I don't offend anybody. I just want to say, what is there to say about it? Well, obviously, Joe Biden did win the presidential election. But let's focus on something else, and that is the turnout. This particular election had the largest turnout by percentage in 100 years. Now, of course, our country has gained people. Probably 20, 30, even 40, 50 years ago, we had millions of people. Right now, I think we're hovering around the 300 million, maybe a little bit more, and that's, children and adults. But voting age, it's been 18 for a long time. But anyway, when we go to percentage, that really makes a difference, because if there was only 150 million that could have voted back in 1920, well, now we're looking at the percentage here in 2020, and it's up to about 66.8. That's the projected number when all the votes are counted. 66% of all adults that could have voted turned out for this one. That's awesome. That's amazing. And that breaks a 40-year record in most states. And again, it's a 100-year percentage break. I mean, it's amazing the amount of people that got out and voted this year. Now, you'll have to answer the question if your candidate won or not. And there was, of course, multiple races. There was not just one person on the ballot that I had to check off. There was probably 30 or 40 slots. But of course, the one that matters to everybody is the presidential election. But let me ask you this part of the question. Did either party get what they wanted 100%? And I don't think the answer is yes. I think the answer is no. Yes, the Democrats did win the presidency, but they did not win the Senate. Now, the Senate is made up of 2 representatives per state, so there's 100. And they do not have a Democratic majority. In fact, the Republicans have, I think, 51, or at least they have 50 of those 100. And the Democrats, the Democrats only have 48. So the Senate is not a Democratic Senate. And on top of that, the House, which is made up of a number of representatives from each state, if I remember correctly, Democrats lost 7 seats there. They have a slim majority by 1 person, I believe. So it's not going to be an easy 4 years for the Democrats, not by a long shot. But I think what we need to remind ourselves is that it was a tight race. Now, something interesting happened with the popular vote. 4 years ago, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote. That means she had more votes than Trump by about, I think it was 3 million. 3 million more people voted for Hillary, but because of the Electoral College, Trump won the most states, or he won the larger states in order to win the presidency. This year, we know that Biden won the Electoral College. He won that vote, but he also won the popular vote by even more. It looks like 5.5 million or more versus the 3 million that Hillary won by on the popular vote 4 years ago. So no matter your interest, your slant, Democrat or Republican, not everything was won or lost. It wasn't a landslide on one side, but there are a lot more Democrats that voted and got out the vote, and I think that's what turned the tide. Now, I want us to remember that no candidate, no party is our savior. We have one savior. And so if our hopes are dashed and our lives are ruined because of this presidency, or conversely, if we are jumping from the rooftops and we think the world is now, everything's perfect, I think we need to check ourselves, because our hope and our future, our salvation, it should not be in a candidate, and it should not be in a political party. It should be in the one person, Jesus Christ. And let's bring it home. North Carolina was split almost right down the middle. Yes, it went 50.1% of the vote as of tallied now went to Trump. 48.7 went to Biden. And that is a total of less than 90,000 votes. If I'm correct, I mean, I think that the town of Cary is 100,000 people. So if just one town or one county would have voted different, things would have been different in North Carolina. I want us to remember that, because I think sometimes we get around a group of people that think just like us, and we forget that there are a lot of other people around that don't think like us. So I don't want us to gloat or to shelter ourselves, but we need to be aware of other people around us. And we'll talk about that some more. So I'm going to review the series real quick. So Andy started by saying that Jesus, if he was in a prayer request group, and he's like, anybody got any prayer requests? Jesus would have raised his hand right before his arrest. Because we see in John, I think chapter 17, he has a prayer, and his prayer is for unity. He said, Lord, I want them to be one as you and I are one. And he's talking about us. I mean, he says, I'm praying for my disciples and those that will hear the message through them. And yes, we have heard the message. It's been 2,000 years, but we have heard the message. We have got God's message, and we have heard it through them, and he wants us all to be one. Now, not only that, but he says, I want you to love one another, and he doesn't stop there, as I have loved you. And boy, when he puts that qualifier on there, that Jesus was he loved unconditionally. He loved sacrificially. So it's not just love each other. I love you. No. He's saying, lay down your life. Lay down your beliefs. Lay down your political views is what I mean. Lay down yourself to have unity and love one for the other. Pretty hard love. Then we learned in the first part of this second video that Christians, thankfully, were the start to the abolishment of slavery, and it started way back with St. Augustine, and it was amazing how he pulled out this from, I want to say, the late 300 AD. And then the same with infanticide, where if you didn't want your child, you just put them at the edge of the wood. No, if the gods didn't save them, that's okay. And the Christians started saying, no, we're gonna find that child that you abandoned, and we're gonna adopt that child. And that was the beginning of the end, hopefully one day, of infanticide or abortion. And there was no law. There's no law in the Old Testament. There's no law in the New Testament. There's no written laws. It's the law. It just love required Christians to do something. Love requires it. And that's that law of Christ, to love one another as I have loved you. So now, in the second part of the second video, this is where I'm getting my information from. He really just hit it home with this quote: where you stand depends on where you sit. I'm going to say it again. Where you stand depends on where you sit. And basically what that means is your life experience determines your political views. All right, I'm going to say that again. Your life experience, your education, what you had or didn't have growing up, where you were born, who your parents were, what you've seen and what you've done, it determines, it shapes, it molds your political views. It also shapes your worldview. And there's no such thing as having a political view that is formed in a vacuum. We all are bringing something to the table when it comes to our politics. That's why people that didn't have the same experience as you growing up maybe don't believe the same political things that you do. I don't know how else to drive it home other than you and I have flawed worldviews, and especially probably flawed political views. We're flawed. We're flawed individuals. We're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have things that have happened to us that shape us in a different way than other people. And we don't need to be married to that. We don't need to say that's the only way to believe just because we haven't experienced what other people have. If this is a little hard to grasp, let's break it down to 3 things that we should be doing as Christians or just as general people. If you're not a Christian and you just think, what is something I can do to help bridge this gap? Here's 3 things that Andy mentioned. He said, number 1, to listen. Simply to listen, and especially listen to others who don't experience the world as you do. There are people that have crossed our path. My wife now has been working at a school on the north end of Sampson County. Around here where we live, in the northwestern part of the county, it's predominantly white. We're at farmland, probably middle class, maybe even upper middle class, depending on which direction you go. But where she works, it is predominantly Hispanic, low income. Parents probably don't have a high education level. It's a different world. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just different. And those viewpoints, the things that she's seen, the experience that the children and the parents that she is around, it has informed us as adults and as Christians, as people. We didn't grow up like that. So their political views are going to be different than ours just off the start. But what the interesting thing is as she experiences these kids, and I've been able to be in the schools through substitution or just being around it and hearing the stories, it has informed me, and hopefully the listening part is I'm listening to what's going on in other people's lives that I didn't experience or I don't experience firsthand. And the second part, after we listen to those, hopefully what's going to happen is that we're going to learn something. Because when we stop learning, that's a sad day. At any age, we should be learning. He had another quote I want to call attention to, and he said, he was told by somebody else, pay attention to the frontiers of your ignorance. Pay attention to the frontiers of your ignorance. We don't know it all. we should always be learning. We should be listening to others who haven't got, who have experienced the world differently and learning. Our viewpoints may change. We don't go into the conversation or the listening to change necessarily, but it probably will be a byproduct. Hopefully, our viewpoint will be rounded a little bit more than, and we won't shut out the things that we don't know or don't understand. And then the third thing is we need to love. All right? Listen, learn, and love. We should not be burning down bridges because of political views. I've seen on Twitter and things like that, Instagram, but especially Twitter, where I don't know these people. I just follow them for board game reasons or I like their movie opinions. And I've seen them say, you know what, my uncle or my aunt or my father or my mother, they don't agree with me politically, so I'm going to never speak to them again. And I think that is something that's horrible. And I understand their frustration. They don't believe the same things I do, so I don't want to deal with that anymore. And that goes against what Christ said. That unity. He wants us to be united. Now, I know that the people are going to have different opinions. That's part of the process. But we should not let the world divide us. We should be loving each other and coming together. Are we going to agree on everything? No, of course we're not. We're going to have disagreements. But hopefully we can be mature about it and find compromise and work toward the greater good. We should not be burning down a relationship bridge over a political view that may change one day, that may have already changed. We may start off in our teenage years, in our 20s, and have one view, and then in 10 years we abandon that view and it changes. I know I have. So it's like, well, why am I going to burn a relationship over something that may change? And speaking of, this country didn't exist 200 years ago. Now, I won't live 200 more years, that's for sure, but it just makes you think about that. Wait a minute. The political views that they started with have changed. Even the party names, like Andy pointed out, that the Whigs, we don't have any more Whigs around here, do we? It's like, no, that party's dead. But I'm sure there was people that believed that the Whigs had it right. Boy, that's the political party to get behind. And yet they're no more. So let's not burn down a relationship because of a political view. One other thing that he said in the first video and he repeated here, sometimes you hear people say, I cannot understand how anybody would believe that. And that says more about the person who just said that, because it's true. I don't understand how you don't understand. Here's the simple truth. Republicans are not crazy. Democrats are not crazy. No one does anything, has an action or a thought that they don't think is right. Simple. And I've even heard it say it like this, it's like people that we deem evil, they don't think they're evil. I mean, maybe you've seen the Avengers movie where Thanos wants to destroy 50% of all life everywhere. And then that's not good enough. At the end of the next movie, he wants to destroy life completely and start over. And he doesn't think he's evil. And that's, the best villains are like that. It's like, they don't look at themselves and be like, well, I'm just a crazy person, No, Democrats are not crazy, and neither are Republicans, and neither are the independents and the Tea Party and such. They're not crazy folk, all right? They are just people, and they're making the best decisions based on where they sit. That's what they stand for. Doesn't that make sense now? So when it really comes down to it, I want you to remember, this election was close. It was not a runaway. Either way, all right. So if you're a Democrat, yes, you have some things to be excited about. But if you're a Republican, you have something to be excited about too, because in 4 years things may change. We really are in a strange place in our history. But I want you to also remember that what you think, there are just as many that agree with you as disagree with you, and there may be more that disagree. It's just kind of mind-boggling how if we just went on popular opinion, If we just went by Family Feud rules and it's just, random 100 people, you might not be quote unquote right. You might be outnumbered. But does that mean you need to change your views? Not necessarily, no. What it does mean is that we should listen to other people that don't have the same background as us and the same life experiences. Number two, we should learn. We should be learning the things. If we're not learning it directly from them, we need to be looking into the things that we don't know. There's plenty that we don't know. And be aware of the frontiers of our ignorance. Boy, hopefully that'll stick with me. And then love. We need to love unconditionally. Love like Christ loved. And we're not called to win an argument. I've heard this so many times with apologetics, with Ravi Zacharias and others. And he said, he won't get in an argument with somebody. That doesn't change anything. It just makes people dig in. He said, I'm not here to win arguments. I'm here to win people. And the only way to win a person to Christ is love. It really is. And just Martin Luther King, I believe it was him that said, that hate does not drive out hate. Only love can do that. So he got it right too. We're not going to win by butting heads and disagreeing over and over again and nobody moving. It's time for us to listen, to learn, and to love. Hopefully, I didn't offend you that much. How about that? You're probably going to be offended at something I said, but I love you, and I hope that this is helping us learn how to be more unified. The world is going to look at us, church. It's going to look at the churches around the world. How are we going to react? And strangely enough, the ones in North Carolina, because we have a split state. One county is Republican all the way, and then right next door, there's a Democratic county right there. It's just strange. And it depends on where you're at, on who and what you're going to hear people talk about and the beliefs. But let's remember that our world is not in these political hands. The world will come and go. Kingdoms will rise and fall. And am I saying doom and gloom over our nation? No. But what I'm saying is that one day it's all going to be gone. Where are our allegiances going to lie? They should lie in Jesus Christ alone. We love you. Can't wait to get back in church real soon. But until then, if you need anything, I'm here. You got my number. Text me. Want to pray with you. Want to know how you're doing. And enjoy your Thanksgiving coming up real soon. And we'll let you go from there. All right? Remember to have faith and have fun.